Thank you, Peter, and thank you to the APC for inviting me to speak today. I work for Tevva Motors, based in Essex, pioneer of medium-duty hydrogen electric trucks and battery electric trucks. And one of the reasons why I've joined them is because I'm really excited by the combination of using hydrogen and electricity to fuel our future. And it's great to hear John's words about the opportunities for using battery and hydrogen technologies together. Just a little bit about me first. I started as a scientist working on electrochemical technology, so very excited by the discovery phase of all this. Then I got into low carbon energy consultancy, trying to work out what are the optimum solutions. Gave a lot of advice to government and then realised, as Rachel's described so clearly, that it's easy to hear what things are to do, but actually the deliveries can be quite a challenge, and formulating policy is very challenging indeed. I went to work for Innovate UK, and there one of the things I'm really proudest of is the work that we did on industrial strategy challenge funds, which have created whole new industries, and I'll come back to why I think that's an appropriate solution for here. But I'd like to actually, rather than kind of go into the detail about those programs, really talk about a couple of stories. These are the stories of a fleet manager. Her name's Floella, and Floella was attracted to her company to work in a logistics company because she was given the opportunity to help them transition to zero-emission vehicles. And she was really excited by this. She'd been operating in fleet management for a while. And what she first did, like anybody would do, was look around, see what vehicles are there. And it was a bit confusing. There's a lot of conflicting information. Eventually, she found some OEMs who were able to sell her zero-emission commercial vehicles. And she got some specs. It was very hard to work out. They weren't really very comparable to each other. Not many of the vehicles had much on-the-road experience, and many of them had upfront costs. But she was okay with that. She knew that the overall thing that matters is the total cost of ownership, and so she looked into what the calculation would be to work out what its real price would be over the long term. And then she hit a stumbling block, which was, although she could find a purchase cost for these, the cost of the electricity or the hydrogen needed for her fleet was very hard to work out. Everybody that she spoke to said, oh, it depends. Do you want fast charging? Do you want, what colour hydrogen do you want? Where are you? How many vehicles? And she didn't really have that much time to work on all this. So anyway, she found some vehicles that she liked. She tried to talk to electricity providers and hydrogen providers to work out how she could get the hydrogen and electricity to the site, to her depot, because that was the most convenient place for her drivers. And then she ran into another brick wall, which was that she didn't really have enough volume for it to be interesting to them. And she only wanted to buy a few vehicles at a time to test them. So she was kind of banging her head against a brick wall. If she only wanted a small amount, then the cost would be phenomenal. So she was scratching her head, and eventually she gave up. And she moved to another company. And in the other company, what was quite interesting is that she was in another country, and she had a much more open door approach. And in that other country, she saw a very different approach. She was given the same challenge, zero-emission fleet as quickly as possible. What she did, though, she found that there was a one-stop shop already, which was able to give advice on the different vehicle options for different use cases. It gave information on what are the right ways of securing energy. And it was able to provide services or introductions to help sort out the combination of electricity and hydrogen that she needed for her depot. And there was a future price for electricity and for hydrogen that allowed her to plug into a cost model. Her accountants internally, her finance team, everybody was comfortable with this. It was very clear what these vehicles were going to cost over what time frame. Even easier, the companies that were offering them were offering on a lease service model. So essentially she was really buying kilometres and payload. So it wasn't just having to buy a vehicle and then having to buy separately charge points and separately refueling infrastructure and separately hydrogen gas. She was able to get all that bundled. And as she got the vehicles in, immediately, straight away, her team had the training that they needed to operate these vehicles, to schedule the vehicle use very efficiently so that the overall costs were kept quite low. And and then she was able to operate them, and she was actually able to save money overall for the company because the overall bottom line was better. What was different between these two companies in two countries? Well, it's what the government had done to organise the landscape. And so I think the opportunities are for government to create to create the organisation around the transition to net zero, to help, whether it's a fleet manager or an energy company or a technology developer or an OEM, to work together to provide a more holistic solution, and one that takes out the pain of trying to do everything in a silo. If you try to do everything in a silo, all of your upgrade costs are very difficult to plan for. You're very much exposed to first come, first serve, or more likely, first come, wait a long time. First come, pay the most, pay for everybody else to benefit later on. And I think that that's a real opportunity. And I'll now come back to the schemes that I was working on when I was at Innovate UK, which was the Industrial Strategy Challenge Fund. That model of government working very closely with industry, with researchers, with NGOs, and with local government, creating a place-based approach, supporting and aligning different funding streams and motivations, has been a really powerful way to kickstart a lot of different sectors in the UK, whether it's battery electric vehicle manufacturing through the Faraday Challenge, whether it's the low-cost nuclear systems that Rolls-Royce have been pioneering that give small modular reactors, whether it's transforming construction by using modular design. Quite a lot of new sectors that have really been given a really big push, and UK government should be able to take the credit for bringing those together. And what comes out of those programs are clear dissemination plans so that the right people get the right information at the right time from trustworthy sources, and that you have deployment and demonstration at the right scale to unlock the next cost reduction and the next planning around infrastructure. So you can scale up not just by ones or twos or even doubling, but by many powers of 10 within short time frames. And the climate challenge is so urgent and the scales are so large that growing those powers of, growing our capabilities around manufacturing and locating infrastructure, locating and replacing all of the different depot sites with zero carbon enabled sites is really big and needs multiple people working on it from all disciplines. So just to summarize, you could either be in the first model where everything's a bit patchwork and people give up because the costs are quite high because the wrong people are paying for the wrong part of the value chain. Or you can have a model where the government supports the right people to work together to get that really easy journey between deciding you want to replace vehicles and getting zero carbon transport enabled. Thank you very much.